Running backs, Bijan. I'm not even gonna. I'll spare you everything. If Matt LaFleur plays all of his starters and they intend on just going full game, I think Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, and Bucky Irving, all four of them up top, are spectacular running back plays. It's going to be tough to differentiate. I'd still put Bijan number one. I would put God, I'd have to put Taylor and Bucky right behind him, and then Josh Jacobs fourth because Patriots already locked up a seed. But that, I mean, I just love the top tier running back. I can almost guarantee you I'll be paying up, and I could see this being a three running back week for me where I pay down in the flex for one of the others.
Yeah, I mean that's a situation you're definitely going to have room to double dip or even have a handful of these guys. I'll make a small distinction. I think you agree. You got four good ones there, but to me, Bijan's in a tier of his own. He's just the best play, even
Yes,
amongst
and
those
they
guys.
must win.
Just every he checks. It doesn't mean you're going to play well, but he checks every single box that I would want.
Yeah, every box. There's not a single box
Come on,
unchecked. There's a
he's
couple
just
unchecked for Taylor, but he's been dominant lately. Uh, if your argument for Bucky Irving, the box left unchecked, would just be that Rashad White is still there, that's a real thing. But Bucky Irving has taken over as well. Like he's this guy's taken over.
and it's a prolific offense. So like, there's plenty of offense to go around, as we saw last week. Like everyone on the Bucks seemed to feast.
Here's what I'm gonna do, and I want you to do the same thing. We're both putting Bijan at the top of the tier.
Yes.
I want to rank them because for me it's going to be Bijan, Bucky, Taylor, Jacobs, top four. But I think all are playable actually.
And for me, it would be Bijan, Bucky, Jacobs, Taylor.
What's the reservation on Taylor? Just a
It's not a reservation. It's just when I look at it, he's got 61 carries in the past two games. They're done. They're cooked. They just got eliminated. I think there's enough variance that they could say, okay, we don't need to give him 30 carries because we are eliminated. Richardson might come back. That's just more variance into the situation. I wouldn't be stunned to see Taylor's workload slightly reduced just because, again, why? What is the need to give him 30 more to close the year?
uh I would I would say I see it a little different. I don't think I don't think they pump the brakes at all on him.
I mean, that's again, I'm not saying that he's
I think Steichen's fighting for his reputation and job at this point.
well, that was last week
That
because
ship has sailed.
that ship has sailed. You just lost to the Giants. I don't think 30 carries for Jonathan Taylor is going to bring that back. So
You're probably right. Mid tier, Charbonnet actually looks okay with Walker out. I think Charbonnet looks pretty decent. Dobbins, if the Steelers lose, Dobbins might get a lot of work if Edwards is out. I really, at this point, don't even want to touch anything from Tennessee. I don't know what's going on with Spears. I don't know what's going on with Pollard. This is a tier that I will probably eschew for the most part. I'll throw Charbonnet up there now, though. We know that Mike McDonald said we want to get this team to 10 wins, right? He's a rookie coach. I think these guys, if they're healthy, and he already said whoever's healthy is playing.
yep.
I actually like Charbonnet a lot, especially if McVay decides that he doesn't care which seed he gets. Charbonnet could actually be one of my priorities this week.
Yeah, I mean, he's got, can't be phased out. Really represented himself well when he's gotten the opportunities. I'm fine with that. I don't love the range, so that's where it's really tricky. Like, obviously, I'm not going to play James Cook. Connor's banged up. I don't like Brees Hall. Pollard and Spears, that's a no. Tracy,
I
it's
like Tracy this week.
a lot of work. 20 carries, a handful of targets. They have incentive. He's a young guy. I think that's where I'm looking. I'm going to go to Tracy.
I was going to put him low tier, but if you want a mid tier, no, go ahead. Throw him in
Yeah,
the
I'm going to go
mid tier.
mid tier with him.
Well, the only reason I was going to go low tier is because I like Dowdle at 5,800 too.
Dowdle's definitely in play. Yeah.
This is a team that even last week, surprised. Did you know Dowdle had 100 rushing yards last week?
Quietly. I didn't know that, but he's just been solid. He doesn't, it's funny for a back, that doesn't have where he gets in trouble. He's not an extreme pass catcher, and they don't score that much. Like he doesn't have,
Yeah,
you know,
no
so there's no
flash from
way.
him. But
Yep.
I still think again, you go out there and you just get a massive workload from Dowd. What would be the point of reverting back to like Ezekiel Elliott at this point? I don't think there's any point.
That should not happen ever.
I don't know how much cheaper I want to go though.
I think you can land there as the low tier. Like again, the tiers are blurred this week because of the situation.
There is one though. Depending on what the Niners do, and if Benson and James Conner are both out, Michael Carter's cheap enough to where I think he would warrant a flyer.
That's another one that, again, on my little list here, there's the, you know, you need the news to break your way. Like you can't play him if you don't get the clearance, but if you do, he's 4,700. He had 13 carries. He can catch the ball. We know that. I'm gonna go with him as my cheapie. Again, context. We want clarification on who else is in that backfield. I don't want a four-headed committee.
Neither do I at all. But if all of those guys are out, Carter's probably viable.
Definitely. I agree.
Because they're going to play. They don't have really any reason not to play their starters. That's not a situation where I see guys like McBride or Harrison Jr. or Murray not playing at all. I think they just finished the season out as strong as they can.
I would agree. I think it is different for James Conner because he's hurt.
No. What I mean is, if all of the backfield guys are actually out and hurt, I expect the rest of the team to be out there.
So do I.
Rip and Sippin said Isaac Garendo rushing under, baby. Yeah, man, I bet that as well. We got that at 64.5, and it was that was a sweatless one. All right, so would you go to like a Ray Davis or a Blake Corum or a Kenny Gainwell? I got to ask you about these guys just because these are teams that may sit starters, but I think this is where the water gets murkier.
It's definitely where it gets murkier because like I always get confused by these situations in the sense of like those guys are still pieces of the puzzle. They're not
Absolutely.
the biggest pieces, but you're not like, all right, let's just give Gainwell 30 carries. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, I'd rather go to Will Shipley if anything, but again, you've got Will Shipley possibly running behind this backup offensive line, which would still be good under Jeff Stoutland. But with either probably, I think Tanner McKee's going to start this week. So, you know, and then you probably don't have AJ or Devontae.
I don't like situations like this. And even with Buffalo could give, 5 carries to, 5 guys. And I worry about the situation with playoff teams that there will be no single player that gets enough volume to warrant it. So like Gainwell caught my eye. I have him on this list, but I think I'd rather go to a team that maybe is a little more keen to push it for one guy like the Tajay Spears of last week.
Fair enough. And I agree. There's value spots on a slate like this, and then there's legit preseason spots. I'm trying to avoid these preseason spots unless there's one caveat. If both teams are in full out preseason mode, then you might be able to make an argument that someone could actually be a pretty good play if you know the volume is going to be there. Because that's the one differentiating factor between week 18 and the preseason. A lot of times in the preseason, it's both backup teams, offense, defense, but then at the same time, it's a big time rotation, big time rotation at each position. If you get a spot where it's not a rotation and it's just like, hey, he's handling the bulk of the work against the backup defense, you could twist my arm there and get me to play those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you just have to check as many of those boxes as you can, and then you roll the dice when you have these type of teams. But in week 18, it's a good worthwhile risk to take in a lot of these situations.
I hope this info is helpful for you guys going into a week like this, because it is for me just talking through it, but I never know. I usually just do what I think is helpful and hope it helps other people.
I hear you. No, I do like to get into because again, we could rattle off, oh, well, these are the guys. Everybody knows that though. Everyone knows that Tampa needs to win. So yes, like we're not breaking any news, but it's like, what about these next level gray areas? Let's talk through the if statements and see.
I actually think this is the most important first look show of the year because I actually think you need time to prep for a week 18 slate like this.
Definitely. Because again, I think it's less about who you play and more about like the kind of the logic behind it, if that makes sense.
It is. And I think if there were ever a slate where you might make some adjustments to the sims to project, to make your own, inject your own bias in this, not even bias, not bias, inject your own thoughts into some of this. Is there ever a better week than week 18 to do that?
No doubt. No doubt.